Hello, welcome to your favorite information communication technologies program on television, where we look at issues, trends, developments in the global ICT industry. Today, we have an incredible package for you. Stay with us.
Some people believe this generation is self-obsessed because of our love for selfies and how we take pictures of everything. But we know better. We know that a selfie is how you capture and celebrate your journey. It's how you celebrate the rewards of your grind. So in the middle of your hustle, if you come across something exciting, take a second to capture it. While on your journey, record it, show the world. And you never know, it might just be the beginning of something great. That's why we have made the Infinix S4 with a 32-megapixel AI selfie camera, so every moment you choose to capture will be nothing short of clear and amazing. Infinix S4, empower the infinity you.
Just in case you've just joined us, you're watching Africa's numero uno tech show on television. Coming up now is Tech News. The event is a Nigerian Telecom Leadership Summit organized by the Nigerian Communications Commission. It was an event that attracted key stakeholders from the Nigerian ICT industry, including former Communication Technologies Minister Dr. Mobola Johnson.
The fact that we're the 10th largest oil producer in the world, 200 million people, a young population, in spite of that, if we look at the digital future of the world going forward, we will become irrelevant.
The whole essence of this Telecom Summit today is to take a stock on what is happening in this very, very important sector of the economy and define a new trajectory that will lead to further economic and social transformation of Nigerians, of things they are doing on a daily basis, how we can assist in ensuring those things they do can be done efficiently and better. So, and until and unless you engage critical stakeholders in the industry, the service providers, okay, big and small, as well as policymakers, hear their views. You know, these views are what you translate into action in determining a new trajectory of economic and social transformation.
Let me start by just commending the EVC for putting this together. It's an opportunity for all the stakeholders in the industry to come together and find ways of improving the contribution of this important sector to the industry. So I'm very excited, and my expectation is after today, we would find ways of growing the industry further. It's been a very important piece of our economy. It's about 10% of the GDP. 10% is clearly significant. And what we're going to do over the next couple of days is to find ways of going beyond 10% to 15%. Of course, there are challenges that we'll be discussing, and hopefully, collectively, we'll find solutions to the challenges facing the industry. Around multiple taxation has been a recurring theme over the last couple of years. We have challenges around right of way. We have challenges around getting approvals from multiple government agencies. But despite those challenges, we've done a relatively good job of creating value for the many stakeholders in the industry.
Multiple taxation, they say, is an issue. What's your take?
It doesn't exist. And I've told a number of people that multiple taxation exists when 2 tiers of government charges the same tax. In the telecom sector, a lot of local governments and maybe some states charge different rates for hosting of mass, for right of way. Those are not taxes, those are user charges. But at the same time, I'm quite aware that they met with under the Joint Tax Board with NCC, and they agreed on certain rates to be paid. Where some local governments just come up with with, in Nepal we used to call them crazy bill. So I don't use that word. But when they just come up with amounts that have no basis, then I think the operators should report that to the State Internal Revenue Service or even to the Joint Tax Board, and we'll try and make sure and see how we can resolve it.
I think it was it's a very timely summit. It was very apt because it's here to explore how we can debottleneck investment and also the taking broadband from the present 30% to 7%. So I think it was a very, very good summit, and I think it was a very, very fruitful discussions were held.
It's quite fantastic. It was a fantastic summit. I mean, people spoke candidly, and I like the quality of presenters. They are quite respectable worldwide, and the content also is of high quality.
Some of the issues raised today, issues of multiple taxation that has been with us forever, issues of infrastructure protection, and the former minister, she suggested presidential fiat can make it happen. Do you share this view?
Well, as much as I would love that to happen immediately, but we've since had other contributions as well. We've seen some of the reasons why a presidential fiat may not really have any effect in Nigeria, especially given our multi-level governance structure. The federal says this, but the state says I own the land. I will not allow you access to the land. The local government says its own. But even at that level, maybe there could be some talk, like we had the regulators says they've been holding meetings, because they know that they know the limit of their own control. Now, but beyond those people are the area boys, which we believe the other speaker, that is the Dr. Salami, who said this thing is enshrined in the Cybersecurity Act, which we could then use security. Knowing the current state of insecurity in the country, somebody can then use that to declare that if you touch any of this critical infrastructure, then so is going to happen to you. That can be a window of opportunity for an executive fiat to be brought about. But will it be long lasting? So we need something that will have the buy-in of the legislators. So generally, I mean, the content of today's summit had actually enriched everybody.
It's been a great forum. The participation has been excellent across the big players, and really all other sectors of our industry as well has been very well represented. Government has been well represented, not just the NCC, but the FIRS, NIPC, so it's been fantastic.
What's your takeaway from this summit today?
My takeaway is that we have a regulator who is listening, who is prepared to engage and seek input from the industry, who is open to formulating new strategies going forward, and I'm very optimistic. It shows it wasn't presentations by the NCC, it was people from outside the NCC brought in to be on the panels and to speak on the panels, to make presentations. So I think it's the NCC seeking input, and I think that's a wonderful thing when our governments engage with the industry to try to move things forward.
This traffic is terrible. What is your map saying?
Don't worry, the map says it will soon clear.
Driver! This bush woman. Madam, come on! See this whole matter you do, madam! Shut up! Driver! Shut up! Okay. Driver! At the end, there's a T-junction. What? See? Driver! Over there, Papa. You finally came. Don't you know that with Glow Agassi, I will always be ahead?
With Glow Agassi, enjoy 125% more data to get ahead. Dial *777#. The largest data network. Glow, grandmasters of data.
Our tech personality of the week is one of Nigeria's finest ICT experts. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Chief Executive Officer of RAC Center, Tunde Coker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on the show. Yes.
So how are you doing?
Very well, thank you very much.
For the sake of our viewers, can we meet you?
Yes, my name is Tunde Coker. I'm the Managing Director of RAC Center. We've been running RAC Center now for 5.5 years since we went live. And prior to joining RAC Center, I was the Managing Director of West Africa and West Central Africa for Emerging Markets Payments. That's owned by a company called Networking International. They do payments processing for cards and credit cards and so on. And I was also Group CIO for Access Bank, which, a role I took 10 years ago. I was Group CIO for about 4 years, and then I moved on to, of course, take the role with Emerging Markets Payments, and more recently, over the last 5 years, RAC Center. I was out of the country for about 28 years, almost 30 years, in the UK. I went to school here. I did study mechanical engineering in the UK. And a postgraduate also at Cranfield Institute of Technology. And after that, I had my entire career in the UK before I came down here. Wide-ranging career in consulting, Capgemini, which is one of the top consulting firms now. I was one of the senior consultants, management consultants there for close to 10 years. And I'll jump to the last couple of roles I had before I came back to Nigeria. Of course, while I was there, I got involved with some of the the leading technologies of those days. The first wave of big data, when it came to data analytics and stuff like that. The first wave of the internet, part of the team that was involved with the first pure play internet bank in Europe. Actually, I think we think globally as well. In the late 90s, early 2000s. So we've been doing fintech for almost 20 years now. It's taking a different shape, but fintech's been around for quite a while. I was the global applications director for BP. So I had a global remit in what was BP's corporate functions. And my last 2 roles was as Chief Technology Officer for the UK criminal justice system. So I was responsible for how technology, the strategy and the actual execution of how we join up the entire criminal justice in the UK, which covers police, crown prosecutions, courts, prisons, probation, and so on. And I was the first IT director for the Ministry of Justice that was created then. And then in 2008, I kind of told everybody, I'm sorry, I'm going to take this role in Nigeria to be Group CIO of Access Bank. I'd been thinking of coming back home for a while. That was a great opportunity to come back here, and I've been back just over 10 years now.
Why is it data for you? Big data. You seem to talk, eat, sleep, wake up, data.
Okay.
Why not software?
Yes.
Why not?
Well, whatever you do, it depends on data. Okay, software won't work if there's no data for it to work on. If you go onto your Google Maps, for instance, and it tells you which route to go on, it's based on the geospatial data that it has. In fact, it also depends on real-time data it's collecting from devices out there to tell you where there's traffic. Okay, and technology has allowed us to collect an immense amount of data, so that level of data continues to increase in an exponential way. I'll give you an example of that kind of increase. In the late 90s, I worked on a global program for one of the large investment banks that allows them to do the analytics for their regulatory reporting and business insights and stuff like that. So we called it big data, 3 terabytes. 3 terabytes would have needed a room of disks, and the cost of it at the time was around about $120,000, right? Well, you can buy 3 terabytes for what, $10 now, probably, in a very tiny, you know. But then if you're spending that amount of money on data now, you're talking about, you know, significant hundreds and hundreds of terabytes, okay, gigabyte, you know, and so on. So you need data to do a lot of what you need to do with software. And for me, technology is not about just what the technology is. It's about the change and transformation you bring to individuals and the societies you execute them in, the innovation that comes with that. You know, and a lot of these apps are there. They're apps, but actually they give value to the person using the apps, right? If it's a fintech app, if it's something to do with agriculture, if it's something to do with mapping, whatever it is. And that app is only useful because it's combining data into the information it gives. And there's an interesting hierarchy of data in time. And I'll link it back to data centers, right? What that means. Okay. So it's one thing having data, okay? If you put the data in structure, it gives you a level of insight into data. If you put that data into context, it actually turns it into information. It's the information you use that you use to acquire knowledge. It's the knowledge you gain that helps you get the transformations you have in either individuals or companies. So companies that succeed significantly have an immense amount of focus on the customer and customer satisfaction. And with that, you need to get customer insight and so on. The only way you can do that is to have data about the customer, the information about the customer, the knowledge about the customer, and the transformation of that knowledge into the actions you take, okay, to drive your customer satisfaction. So what does that have to do with data centers? Well, if you're facing a customer some IT system, whether on your online or whether you're using an app on a phone somewhere, if that thing doesn't work, or if it's slow and the performance is poor, you lose the customer. The customer's experience is terrible and they'll leave you. So you've got to deliver the solutions you have to the customers in a way that works and resonates with the customer in terms of performance, in terms of look and feel, in terms of usability, and in terms of subliminal experiences as well. Well, that data has to be held somewhere, okay? So the data usually gets held in servers, in data centers, right? Now, you have to connect to the data center somewhere, somehow, so you have these networks that have to work, right? And you have to host the apps somewhere as well, or on the phone or wherever you're using it. So if the data center is down, all of that entire value chain is down. Even your phone that you use, even the telcos have to sit the systems that they use to give your, you know, there's a whole telco value chain. The data center has to work. The mast, they has to, you know, be powered and so on. Okay, the towers rather, and then you know, as long as that chain works successfully, then your phone works or the apps work. But they're all sitting in a data center somewhere. Now, I used the example of, you know, the terabytes that, you know, needed a whole room to the terabytes that now need just a small stick. It's the same thing is happening with data centers. There's volumes of data that you have to keep. All the processing you need of that data. That means that in a split second, a Google Maps could tell you what the route is and the traffic. You need an immense amount of computing power. You need a huge amount of data. So the size of data centers continue to expand, so much so that even though we're making a huge amount of progress on the amount of storage capability and so on, it's actually still needs a significant amount of data center space. So that's what the role the data center infrastructure plays in the end point of data. And the reason I, as you mentioned, going back to the question, I see it as a key resource, okay, is that it's the data that actually delivers the knowledge you need to do whatever it is that you need for IT transformation.
With what is happening around the world today, there are breaches. You know,
yes. There are breaches, and when you come to information security, okay, you know, if you have a shop that's got lots of gold in it that people are interested in, even just for the sake of showing that they can break into your shop, or because they want to take hold of that gold and go and resell it somewhere and steal it and make money out of it, you'd make sure it's secure, wouldn't you? Right? Make sure you have the right security at the perimeter. You make sure you have this right security. Even if you break through the perimeter, you know, you have another level of security. It's the same thing with data. Data is a gold mine, especially if you get hold of the data that you're not supposed to get hold of. And for that reason, you need, there are techniques you have in place to make sure that you secure that data, either at the physical level or at the software level. You know, if data is so key to you in your personal life or in the business life, you have to have an architecture, it's an information security architecture that takes into account all of the aspects of the breadth of data you have, but all of the different layers of everything that the data sits on. You know, the front-end device, the networks you sit on, the servers you sit on, all of the firewalls that essentially are the gateway between the data you have and the outside world that filter what you have. Protective monitoring, which means you need to assess who's trying to, you know, if you have a TV camera, you're watching to see who's trying to get into your property, right? It's the same thing, you know, you have protective monitoring that makes sure that you're looking at who's trying to get into your data. You know, you have to analyze where it's coming from. You have to make sure that even if there was a breach, you can trace it, you can secure very, very quickly. These are all of the things you need to do with information security and information security management. So let me give you an another you know, example. So someone, you now put a lock on the door of your nice fancy shop. Someone figures out how to pick that lock, right? So you put a bigger, more complicated lock on it. That person is now trying to figure out how to now fix the bigger, complicated lock. So you would realize that they're going to figure out how to do that. Then you get a another complicated one. And it's an ongoing battle for information security. There are people out there, not just people, ultimately people actually, because even if you write software that does a whole lot of things and denial of service attacks and so on, which is just disruptive, bloody-mindedly disruptive, right? It comes down to people. You need to make sure you stay ahead of the knowledge that they have. So every time you find a way of securing the different layers of access to your data, if somebody else is working out how to find a way around the back door. So you have to constantly understand, and that's why you have lots of security associations around the place, information security associations and so on, because the professionals need to share data about where the next likely breach is coming from, what the best practices in doing it. And finally, for information security, a lot of it comes down to education of the end user, because there's so much that you can do to secure your own environment. If someone sends you an email saying there's this attachment, okay, the way they label the attachment makes it so, it's a bit like someone giving you poison fruit, you know. It looks so wonderfully juicy, and then you take a bite and you're compromised. Your health is done and so on. It's the same thing, you know, some attachment says open me and there's lots of nice stuff out. That attachment could actually be the source of software that then infiltrates your phone or your laptop or whatever else you're using. And people have to be educated to know what the telltale signs are of when it's quite likely you're going to be compromised. And people therefore have to behave in that way to make sure that they're not compromised. So it's an ongoing battle. Information security management never ends, okay? And it is an ongoing battle in terms of how you secure the environment.
How has Nigeria fared in this regard? Data center management, breaches. Recently we had, you know, all of the compromises going in the banks, in the back door. Do you think that as a nation we we have done well in this area?
We continue to improve. Significantly more awareness now with companies and also with agencies such as NIDA and so on. And it's an endless, continuous process. There's an interesting wave of change that's happening in the country right now, because increasingly the country starts to realize that the real gold, the real source of the future is not really oil. Oil is just another commodity, as we have with cocoa, as we have with groundnuts, as we're blessed with lots of commodities, right? But they have a life, they have a place. But even those commodities, you can't drill them, you can't operate them, you can't operate an agri value chain without data. So there's a realization now that the data, the base of data is actually the future of our country. Innovation in IT and in intellectual property, because you know we have more brains and more fantastic people than we have oil. Even our diaspora is now sending more money, but our inflows into the country from the diaspora are significantly more than the oil revenues that we get. So that's intellectual property that we have out there of Nigerians who just send money home. And so that really is our future.
Wow, that was our tech personality of the week, Mr. Ayo Tunde Coker, Chief Executive Officer of RAC Center. For comments and observation, please reach us on the numbers and emails now showing on your screen. You can also see this on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the production crew, thanks for watching. Same time, same station, I'll be here. I'm Don Pedro Agambi, signing out.
And the winner is...